5-0?
Cover's blown.
You better go, get your gear. Oh, what, you 5-0? Huh?
Take this boy outside and kill him 3 times and blow the building.
Scotty, help me, I'm gonna die!
Let's go!
Guys, welcome to a classic movie review of 1991's New Jack City, starring Wesley Snipes, Ice-T, Chris Rock and Judd Nelson. Directed by and also starring Mario Van Peebles, it's the story of a business-driven drug kingpin who becomes even more powerful due to the new crack epidemic. Now, unfortunately for him, this invites the attention of a small group of street-smart cops, and what follows is a film that unapologetically pinches the majority of its plot from Scarface and uses it as a sermon on how black communities are being destroyed by this devastating new drug. Now, it's also one of the most cliche-ridden cop thrillers you're likely to see, and the whole thing's smothered in one of the great hip-hop soundtracks, all making for one of the most enjoyable movies of the 90s. Let's take a look. So the late 1980s and 90s saw a kind of revival, in a sense, of blaxploitation, taking stories of black communities and black culture and making them into, hopefully, mass entertainment. Now, New Jack City's debut director, Mario Van Peebles, of course, was the son of filmmaker Melvin Van Peebles, whose most famous movie was Blaxploitation classic Sweetback's Baadasssss song. Anyway, New Jack City fused ripped from the headlines issues of a society beset by the crack epidemic and served them up with a side order of undercover cop action.
Yeah, some brothers from Esplanade Gardens, thrill seekers, want to be gangsters. I hate them, so what's up?
All right, what's up is this. We need some evidence, man. Evidence of murder, drug trafficking, racketeering, tax evasion, man, anything.
You see, Wesley Snipes' gangster boss, Nino Brown, and his crew, the self-named Cash Money Brothers, have no issues in selling drugs to get rich and destroy their own communities. Now, Ice-T's street smart cop and Judd Nelson's loose cannon cop team up to infiltrate the gang. Now, meanwhile, Snipes and co have to fend off the mob in order to gain control, and, oh yeah, Chris Rock is caught in the middle as a junkie informer.
Let me pay you back, man. Let me help you bring Nino down, man. He promised me a job, man. I'll take his money and report to you.
Yeah, I don't know.
So New Jack City gets a little bit of stick these days for not having aged particularly well, but it's a personal favourite of mine. I remember in the early 90s when my family got Sky TV, or cable for anyone in the US, this was one of the movies that was always on and always playing, and I'm sure I'd been far too young to watch it at the time, but I loved it and the music was great. And watching it now, it has its faults, no doubt. It's competently but not brilliantly directed by Van Peebles. There's a memorable opening shot involving the 59th Street Bridge and the reappropriation of the Carter Building, which I'll elaborate on in a moment. A standout set pieces, along with an opening foot/kids/bicycle chase between Ice-T and Chris Rock that's excellent. However, it certainly doesn't need some of the crazy Dutch angles he occasionally throws in there, and it's got a sloppy edit for sure. It's also one of the rare films that would actually benefit, I think, from being a little bit longer. I don't think there's a director's cut, but I'd be intrigued to see one. Now, I'll get to Wesley Snipes in a bit, but here we have rapper Ice-T in, I think, his first dramatic role. He'd been in the music video business right through the 80s, and he's no Al Pacino, but I do like him in this. He certainly has a screen presence and would star in some decent films throughout the early 90s. As Scotty Appleton here, he acts alongside 80s teen movie veteran Judd Nelson, the pair of them reporting to Van Peebles as Lieutenant Stone. Now, these guys are called on the job when Snipes' Nino Brown devises a plan to take over the Carter apartment complex and create a drug factory, essentially, a compound. The sequence showing this being one of the standout set pieces of the movie.
Yes, sir.
And you are going to turn over control of the Carter to the brothers.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. Well, if you don't, I guess the shotgun goes off and blows your big fat head off clean before you can get your clothes back on.
Van Peebles condensing the construction of a criminal fortress into just a short montage. The fact that a drug lord can take over an entire apartment block with no one batting an eyelid. A commentary, I suppose, on how troubled black neighbourhoods were mostly ignored. So yeah, it falls to Ice-T to infiltrate the Cash Money Brothers enterprise using Chris Rock's Pookie as a snitch. Now, Chris Rock, by the way, almost steals the whole movie here. It might be the best acting that he's ever done. The struggles his junkie goes through getting clean and then relapsing is some powerful stuff and has a feeling of realism the film almost doesn't deserve. 4 decades before being the guy who Will Smith slapped at the Oscars, Rock was cracking wise in films like this, Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Boomerang.
This crack shit, man, it's got me, man. I don't got no control over it, man. I try to kick, man. That shit just be calling me, man. Be calling me, man. I just gotta go to it. Need help, man.
Come on, man.
Now, Wesley Snipes as the oily crime boss, Nino Brown, is great here. He's clearly having the time of his life, chewing up some splendid dialogue. Much of it I can't really show in this video. But New Jack City was his launch pad. He sort of broke out in Major League in 1989, but here he got to flex his acting chops and his action man abilities.
Hey, look, I've been dealing drugs ever since I was 12 years old. See, I didn't have the chances that you have, Miss Hawkins. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, Miss Hawkins.
Now, if you're a more modern viewer and you only know Snipes from his more recent straight-to-video era, trust me, in the early 90s he kicked ass. Passenger 57, Boiling Point, Demolition Man, Rising Sun. Here, though, he gets to zigzag between street hood, businessman, cold-blooded killer, tragic villain, and back again. Now, as is the gangster movie law, there's an internal struggle within the villain's organisation here, and it comes in the form of Snipes and his business partner, G-Money. Snipes is Nino at this point, drunk on power and becoming suspicious of everybody. So far, so Scarface, I know. But it's quite gripping stuff, to the point that the film suffers, I think, when Snipes isn't in it. I do love Ice-T, but for the most part, New Jack City can have that whiff of a 90s police television show when it's just the cops left to their own devices. Now, one thing I did notice rewatching the film is the glorious late 80s, early 90s fashion on show here, and there's some big hair, bigger mobile phones, and Snipes' wardrobe is a thing of tasteless beauty. Now, although important, New Jack City's anti-drug sermonising can get quite heavy-handed, and the rise and fall of the villain story is almost as old as cinema itself. But along with that same year's Boys in the Hood, Van Peebles and co. ushered in a new wave of cinema that featured black heroes and villains, along with hip-hop soundtracks, and altered the course of a section of cinema history. Go check it out.
Well, thank you a lot, man, because you know I want to get back in this war. This guy, man.
So you in or out?
I'm in, man, all right?